world of deceit, telling the truth is a revolutionary act. It's the David Knight Show.
As the clock strikes 13, it's Thursday, the 2nd of April, year of our Lord 2026. Well, as we come up to Easter weekend, we had Trump giving a speech last night, and the markets are giving a thumbs down to what he had to say. Every day, it's a different story from this liar in chief. It's amazing to see this unfold. It's difficult to watch, but it truly is amazing to watch this. And of course, now we have another distraction that's coming down the pipeline. We have a long pipeline of distractions set in place. And of course, Benny Johnson is the guy who's been taking the lead on this UFO deceptions, taking a strange turn yesterday with Matt Gaetz saying he's been told that we have alien human breeding program. We'll take a look at that. And take a look at the lies of Trump and the truth of what we see with our own eyes that is happening there. We'll be right back. As a matter of fact, we also have a Supreme Court back and forth, not looking good for Trump's argument about birthright citizenship. We'll talk a little bit about that. But also at the same time, you see the federal courts and Supreme Court thumbing their nose at our birthright, the Bill of Rights, as the Declaration of Independence points out. You know, the fact that God created us equal and endowed us with certain inalienable rights. Well, the Supreme Court and the federal courts are trying their best to take those inalienable rights away from us. You know, we look at the this argument about immigration that is there. You know, we really have an illegal alien president, quite frankly. This is a president who has used the office of the presidency illegally to turn it into something that is completely alien to the Constitution. That's what I mean when I say we have an illegal alien president. Well, let's take a look at this Matt Gaetz claim. He went on with Benny Johnson, and he claimed without any evidence that the U.S. is forcing extraterrestrials to mate with humans abducted from war zones and from migrant caravans. You know, it's a good rule of thumb that whenever you make extraordinary claims, it demands extraordinary evidence.
You know, there's a rumor going around about the first thing Matt Gaetz asked when he was told about this.
What was that?
He was asked, well, are the aliens under 17?
Yeah. I'm sure that when he heard this news, his eyebrows raised. Or maybe that was a surgery. I don't know. Well, I think it's interesting, before we get into this, to look at Benny Johnson, because he's been the common thread with all this stuff. Kicked it off with his interview of Obama. You know, he gets to interview very big people, very big names. He interviews Obama, who says, well, yeah, there's really aliens, but I haven't seen them. But yeah, they're really there. Kicked that off. And then he had on J.D. Vance, who said, well, they're really demons, but we can't get into that right now. And he's had one person after the other selling this stuff. And so who is this guy, Benny Johnson? I looked at this, and, you know, the guy who's now become UFO Central. And he's got a large following. He's getting very large names to come on his program. And I didn't know who he was. I've been seeing his name because the people he's been interviewing, but it's like, who is this guy? Well, I think there's an important context here to understand who Benny Johnson is. This is a guy who was fired from BuzzFeed for plagiarizing. I mean, when BuzzFeed fires you, these are people who don't have the best reputation for investigative journalists, by the way. Then he was hired by the National Review. Then he was hired by Daily Caller. He's been passed around by a lot of major organizations. BuzzFeed said that about 10% of what he was doing was plagiarized. And guess who he was plagiarizing from? Wikipedia. How's that for an impeachable source?
I will say real quickly, I saw a tweet from Benny Johnson a couple days ago And he claimed that when they were brought in as reporters at BuzzFeed, they were specifically trained and everyone was told, just, take whatever you can. Don't worry about quality. We're going for quantity and speed. So just take everything and put it out over and over again. Mm-hmm. And allegedly that was everyone, and he was the guy that was the scapegoat for it. So this was seemingly a practice BuzzFeed had. And when people caught on and didn't like it, they just threw Benny Johnson under the bus for it.
So there you go. Everybody was doing it. So don't blame me. This is the whataboutism that is out there. We're seeing that now from this guy, another guy that I'd never knew who he was, Stephen K. Smith, I think it is. And everybody's saying, is he going to run for president? He's not going to run for president. He's going to do this. And it's like, who is this guy? It turns out to be a sports commentator. And he's doing that whataboutism. He goes, don't complain to Trump about Trump. We've had for decades, people have been telling us that we need to go after Iran. It's like, yeah, because they were lying about it being an imminent threat to us. We were a threat to them and have been a threat to them for 73 years. We've been a threat to them. And so anyway, so he does he gets fired from BuzzFeed. He famously wrote an article, though, after he was gone from BuzzFeed, Travis. A very controversial, he put together what he said was the most controversial tweets of a Boston Antifa account. It turns out that after he does the article and he gets a lot of attention, that that was a fake account. It was a parody account. So he's not known for doing his research, is he?
Womp womp.
But then he was rewarded with a high-ranking position at Turning Point USA. Then he became a host at Newsmax. Then in August of 2024, there were charges that Russian state media was funneling $10 million to this organization that looked exactly like his organization. And he didn't admit it, but he came out and he said, well, I was set up and all this stuff. So he's being paid to influence, likely by Russia as well. August of 2025, the next year, which was last year, he sensationalized and falsified claims of violence in his neighborhood in order to support Trump's violence with ICE. Turned out that it was all this lies and sensationalism has really worked out very well for Benny Johnson. He's got over 4 million followers on Twitter alone. It's the same kind of business model that Alex Jones uses, quite frankly. And so this is your source. Folks, consider the source. We're going to have a constant stream of people on the Benny Johnson show feeding us this distraction about aliens. Here's what Matt Gaetz had to say.
I think the most important information will be the biologics that are not human that have been discovered. And even some of the briefings that aren't classified just need to be out in the public. I mean, I had someone come and brief me who was in a military uniform, worked for the United States Army, that was briefing me on the locations of hybrid breeding programs where captured aliens were breeding with humans to create some hybrid race that could engage in intergalactic communication. An actual uniformed member of the United States Army briefed me on that.
Yeah,
non-human biologics.
The military would never lie about anything, right?
Interracial alien mating?
Isn't there laws against that in the South?
Wait a second. You had whistleblowers tell you this kind of thing? Can you please unpack that?
Yeah, I had a guy who was uniformed. He was a senior enlisted with the United States Army. Came into my office in Crestview, Florida, in a non-classified setting. I had members of my staff there. And what they explained is that the military ran a very secret program where aliens that were living were in forced breeding programs with humans that had been abducted from war zones and from even the caravans of migrants. Now, again, I didn't verify this, but what the whistleblower was telling me is that there were between 6 and 12 locations around the country where this happened. And what he wanted was a group, members of Congress, to all show up at the same time at all of these different locations so that any of those activities could not be moved. And of course, it's a physical impossibility to get members of Congress to simultaneously show up at 8 locations at one time. And so that never occurred.
It's a physical impossibility to get members of Congress to do anything. But of course, it's not possible for this guy to release any evidence to anybody. have he's going to go to Congress and say, let's all show up here on a certain day. This story, folks, does not pass the sniff test. Well, actually, it does pass the sniff test. You can smell this a mile away, what it is. I'm getting really sick of this guy, Benny Johnson, I just got to say, and I'm getting sick of the lies coming out. This is the latest distraction. Hey, we got a war in Iran and he's covering up the Epstein tapes. It's like, squirrel over here, just like straight out of Up, the dogs that are talking, how you can distract them. Gaetz described the man that gave him the extraterrestrial info as both a senior enlisted man with the U.S. Army and a whistleblower. But he doesn't have any evidence. And of course, Matt Gaetz never made an issue of this while he was in Congress. He waited to go on where? The Benny Johnson show. And he claimed the man told him that the service program, the secret program, forced extraterrestrials in custody to mate with humans. Yeah, okay. Well, this is going to be grabbed by a lot of these Christian grifters. Who can say, Nephilim. This fits into our paradigm here. That's not what it is, folks. It's just a lie. It's just a lie. Gaetz admitted that he didn't verify the claims, but he was told there were between 6 and 12 breeding facilities. So this guy's got the evidence, but he's not even really sure whether it's a half dozen or a dozen, right? None of this holds any credibility whatsoever. So again, this has been a gradually building thing, though. First we had Obama, and everybody talked about that, and Obama kind of pulled it back a little bit. I think it shows you the uniparty aspect of this and how behind the scenes these guys are orchestrating their programs and their distractions. In the same way that Trump handed off this pandemic bioweapon program to Biden and he ran with it. It's the left-right paradigm that's here, the march towards tyranny. So first we had Obama, then Laura Trump came out and said, my father-in-law has already got his speech written about this. I bet he does. However, the press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, responded to inquiries about this, saying, well, a speech on aliens would be news to me. And so J.D. Vance then goes on with Benny Johnson and talks about how, I think they're demons, but we don't have the time to talk about that. He's making... trying to connect with Christians that are out there. Meanwhile, Tim Burchett in Tennessee also joined the Benny show, where he said something dark is going on. Several top scientists with expertise in UFO-related fields have either gone missing or been killed in under a year. Again, a lot of innuendo, no proof. We've seen this all before. As a matter of fact, Alex Jones got a big Drudge link yesterday, picture and the whole bit. And because he came out, Alex Jones said, sadly, the Trump we all knew and loved no longer exists. I tweeted out and I said, that Trump that you all knew and loved from Alex Jones never existed. He was a myth created by Alex Jones to grift people. That Trump never existed. All the 4D chess, don't worry about the bioweapon, it's sugar water nonsense, the stop the steal, the sting, all of this stuff. This idea that Trump is fighting the deep state when he was in charge of the deep state and how he made it deeper and statier. It's such a fantasy. And now they're going to do this with space aliens. Hey, if it works with Trump, you could even do it with space aliens. Maybe they're the ones who are really the clients of Epstein. Let's just pull all this stuff together into a unified conspiracy theory. It wasn't actually billionaires, folks. It was space aliens who are raping and abducting children. It wasn't Trump and Epstein. It was the space aliens. We're going to find that out. That's where the breeding program pulls us back in. They were all out there at the Zorro Ranch, I guess, was one of the sites where they had them there. It's ridiculous, but we've seen Alex Jones jump off of the Trump train many times and then jump back on. I mean, I've seen him privately behind the scenes just railing with anger and four-letter words at Trump, then come on air, and start flattering him. Then he got to the point where he started doing it on air. And he would do that, and then a week or so, he would come back later. I think what's different this time, I think Alex Jones sees that Trump is really getting at the end of his rope. The Titanic has hit the iceberg. And so these rats are now jumping off the ship, and there's not going to be a ship to get back onto. That's why he's positioning himself this way. It was just a couple of months ago, after Trump got in, that Alex Jones was cheering the police state that he had done 4 or 5 documentaries on to oppose it. He was cheering foreign interventionist wars in South America. He was cheering the extrajudicial murder of people who were suspected of being drug runners. And then all of a sudden now he has now switched again. So that was just a couple of months ago. So I don't put too much stock in it. However, it was kind of interesting as he put out on social media. He said, in the 1980s, Trump said that he'd deal with Iran the exact same way he's doing it now, advocating for going in and taking over their oil production as compensation for losses. Now, that was just the day before Alex Jones said, well, the Trump that we all know and love is gone, right? He was just flattering him the day before. I want you to think about that. Was it good when Trump was saying that in the 1980s? No. That was still criminal. He was still, criminal Nazi idea just to say, well, let's just go in and take their oil. What gives you the right to do that? You're nothing but a thief and a pirate and a mass murderer when you do that. And so it was reprehensible when he said it in the 80s. It's reprehensible now that he's doing it. It's nothing to praise, Alex. What's the matter with you? You don't have any sense of morality. That's why you're like Trump and why you love him so much. He says, I'll take the Trump from 10 years ago, not the Trump from 37 years ago or whatever, right? Well, that Trump from 10 years ago, he wasn't a pedophile then at that point in time. We're supposed to believe that. Tell you, once you're a pedophile, always a pedophile. That's what people have said. I don't know. I look at this and that's the consistency with Trump. What you see him doing with Jeffrey Epstein, being his wingman, his pedo parties. That's the real guy that is there. Then we've got another Trump administration official who's out there. This guy's going to be probably a guest on the Benny Johnson show pretty soon. Trump administration official accuses Trump's Ministry of Truth Social of blocking his posts. Why? Because he said that he teleported to a Waffle House 50 miles away. This is a bridge too far, even for the tall tales of the Trump regime. They don't want to get into this. Greg Phillips, who is in charge of FEMA's Office of Response and Recovery. That explains a lot, doesn't it? He accused Trump's Truth Social of blocking his post on Wednesday after claiming to have teleported to a Waffle House 50 miles away. Phillips made headlines last month after it was revealed by CNN's K-File that he made a number of bizarre statements, including claims that he had teleported to a Waffle House 50 miles away. I saw this at the time. I didn't report on it.
Sorry, I have to break in, but I think quite a few people have had this experience, but it's because they're severely drunk. I don't know, man. I wanted to go to Waffle House, and I was it was 50 miles away, but I showed up at the Waffle House.
I don't know how I got here. Yeah, that's what he's saying. I don't know how I got here. I see a lot of people that are late night clientele like that at the Waffle House, quite frankly.
Yeah, I've seen quite a few people at Waffle House that look like they could have just teleported in. No clue how they got there.
Yeah. He said, this is in Georgia, and I end up at a Waffle House like 50 miles away from where I was. And he said, they said, that's not possible. You just left here a moment ago. But it was possible. It was real. The question is, was he drug tested at that point in time?
I'm also curious as to what investment the aliens had in getting him to Waffle House. They just like, well, he wants Waffle House. It's going to take him a while. We could help him out, guys. We could get him there instantly.
Well, the sad thing about this is he's now bringing Jesus into this, right? And the Bible to somehow explain it, because this was a leap of faith. This was, it's not beam me up. That's the saddest thing. They keep bringing Jesus into these crazy things like this. He said, I've been trying to get a post response to my friends on the most recent CNN hit on me. Yeah, imagine that. CNN made fun of him when he said he was teleported 50 miles to a Waffle House. He said, I've tried to post this 6 times, and he complained to the Truth Social CEO and the chair of President's Intelligence Advisory Board, Devin Nunes. He said, why are you blocking me and my ability to respond? By the way, what does this tell you about the Ministry of Truth Social? It is not just the public square in any way, shape, or form. None of these social media places are. They all do shadow banning. They all do pay attention to what people are saying and shut down what they don't like. He said, God will not be mocked. Like, don't bring God into this. He says, people can debate me. They can question me. They can even ridicule what they don't understand. But here's the real question. What's harder to believe, that God could move in a moment during a spiritual battle, or that Jesus Christ rose from the dead and is coming again? I know what I've experienced. I know who I serve. Well, again, what he is alleging is that he thought he was dying of cancer, and I haven't gone through and looked at the whole story, but it's just, why would God teleport him to a Waffle House to cure him? Of course, God can do anything. This doesn't seem to be something that would be necessary. He said, everybody's talking about your Waffle House expedition like they know how God moves. The Christians by name only are really showing their true colors. So here you go, because I don't believe his Waffle House teleportation. I'm just a Christian in name only. As I said before, extraordinary claims demand extraordinary proof. There is extraordinary proof about Christ's resurrection, not about this guy's teleportation. Stop putting in nonsense here. You're dragging down the name of Christ. That's what I feel about this. So maybe, I don't know, what was the point of going to the Waffle House? Is he going to go there and turn napkins into pancakes? I think they already do that at the Waffle House. It certainly tastes like they were napkins.
There's also the fact that you would think if something like this happened, I can promise you guys, if I ever get teleported anywhere, the first thing I'm going to do is pull out my phone, record a video saying, this is a really weird experience. I'm just recording this right now so I can get my feelings and thoughts in the moment. It's not going to be, I show up on a podcast. By the way, guys, just so you know, I got teleported to an IHOP in Albuquerque. I didn't mention it before, but, it happened. And then I just, got back home somehow, I guess.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, he says, well, in the Bible, you had people that were whisked away for this or that. And it's like, I don't know, was he taken up in a chariot of fire? That's what I want to know.
To God's presence, not to Waffle House.
Anyway, so we got grifters like Paula White. We got this guy. And Paula White is out there. She's pronouncing special blessings on Trump and comparing him to the Lord Jesus Christ. It makes me disgusted to see this. And you got Robert Jeffress right there nodding his head the entire time, yeah. But, when I see Paula White in that clip that I've played in the past where she's out there, I think I've still got it in the deck here, as a matter of fact. But she's out there telling people that, I need $100,000 and I only see 3 envelopes there. I'm not coming out there and healing any of you people until you pony up some more money, right? I need some more money before I start healing people. An absolute total fraud. Disgusts me. I saw that video yet again. It keeps resurfacing. I put it up with the quote out of Acts 8 where they meet Simon the MAGA guy, right? That's basically what he's called, sorcerer, right? It's the root word of magician. It looks very much like MAGA in the original Greek. And so Simon the MAGA guy, the sorcerer, sees apostles healing people, and he goes over to Paul and the others, and he says, hey, I'll give you money for that ability. I said, you don't have any idea what's going on with this if you think this is about money, to paraphrase what they had to say. They said, your heart is not right with God. Your money perish with you. I put that quote up from Acts 8 because that really is what Paula White is doing. You thought the gift of God could be purchased with money? You offer it for sale to people? I remember at the very beginning, after Christ's resurrection, they had... you've got Peter and some of the others are in the temple, And there's a guy who is begging alms because was he blind or couldn't walk? I can't remember now. I just thought about it. But anyway, he begs for money. And they said, well, we don't have silver or gold, but what we've got, we will, give to you. And they freely gave him healing. That's what they did. And that's why there were so many people who were willing to die. That's what martyr means. It means a witness. These were extraordinary claims, folks. And those extraordinary proof, some of the best proof you can have is somebody who tells a story, who sticks to a story on penalty of death. That's some of the best attestation you can have. That's one of the things that J. Warner Wallace looked at when he was doing the cold case investigation as his investigation into Christianity, because he didn't like the fact that his wife had become a Christian. I'm going to disprove this. This guy's a cold case detective. And it's like, okay, we have this testimony from people who, under penalty of death, refused to change their story. I think they believed it, right? And you've got a lot of people who went to their death. That's why they call them martyrs. That's a Greek word for witness. Of course, Islam has changed that
and
perverted that meaning.
There's even a lot of things that, though true, most people wouldn't die for. Mm-hmm. Even someone puts a gun to your head and says, "Tell me the sky is green."
That's right.
You're going to say the sky is green because that doesn't matter. That's not right. Something worth dying for. But these people believed this and knew it was important enough to say, "No, I won't deny it. I won't recant it. This matters."
That's right. That's right. Absolutely right. We're going to take a quick break, folks. By the way, one of the things that, thank you, IRS Machine Gun. Thank you very much for the tip. He said, when Alex said he wasn't MAGA, he was 1776. I just about spit my coffee all over the phone. Yeah, he's one of the guys who basically created it. Make America Great Again was not even a new slogan. I just about spit my coffee out when Trump was running back in the 2016 election. And he said he's going to copyright that. And it's like, he can't copyright that. We had one president after the other talk about that in their campaigns. But of course, I didn't realize at the time that Trump could get away with anything. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Wonderful Jewish American community and to Jews celebrating in Israel and around the world this week.
I don't know how Trump jumped in on. Maybe I hit this button. Yeah. We'll play that clip a little bit later. Trump has vowed to hit Iran harder, and he tells us that he's obliterated their missile program, and yet we have had a heavy attack on Israel last night, actually, during night. Fox News reported this.
Well, we've been watching the Supreme Court. Israel is being pounded by Iran, sirens sounding over Tel Aviv as a barrage of missiles hit the nation. Let's bring in Jonathan Hunt with more. Jonathan.
Kaylee, Israel in general and Tel Aviv in particular have been under almost constant bombardment throughout the day today. One of the most intense bombardments, in fact,
Where'd the missiles come from?
early days of this war. Just about an hour ago, we had an hour-long series of sirens. We watched as the interceptors were launched from this area at those missiles, which came in one after another from Iran. And this, remember, this...
Isn't that interesting? I thought Trump had obliterated all the missiles. Well, the reality is that no matter what Trump tells us, and he keeps changing his story, even as I pointed out yesterday, it's April Fool's. He says, hey, I'm just going to leave here. I'm going to let the people who need the oil from the Strait of Hormuz, let them figure this out and take it over. And then he has his speech last night, and well, another 3 or 4 weeks, I guess we're going to be there. But we're going to obliterate everything as we're leaving. What a genius plan, isn't it? And he doesn't really know what he's going to do from one point to the other.
Looking for whatever we want, and we're hitting it, and we have another 3,554 targets left. And that'll be done pretty quickly. And then we, at some point, we're going to have to determine what we do. But they have, they've never seen anything like that.
Yeah, and of course, those targets are going to be hit with missiles that are costing $2 or $3 million a piece, maybe more, that we can't replace in order to defend our own country. We have to destroy this other country, bomb them back into the Stone Ages. Has he even thought about what happens at the next point because of that? How does that help us or anybody other than Israel, of course? And again, Bibi has been pushing us into this for a very long time.
Benjamin Netanyahu is boasting that he can bring the U.S. along with whatever he does.
Especially today with America. I know what America is. America is something that can be easily pushed to the right direction.
Wow, America can be easily pushed. Even if that is true, it's insulting to hear out loud. And to be fair, Bibi has had a lot of success in pushing America.
If you take out Saddam, I guarantee that it will have enormous positive reverberations on the region.
My fellow citizens, at this hour, American and coalition forces are in the early stages of military operations to disarm Iraq, to undermine Saddam Hussein's ability to wage war.
Obviously, we'd like to see a regime change, at least I would, in Iran, just as I would like to see in Iraq.
A short time ago, the U.S. military carried out massive precision strikes on the 3 key nuclear facilities in the Iranian regime.
Iraq, Iran, and Libya.
Today, I authorize the armed forces of the United States to begin a limited military action in Libya.
He's running around the Middle East, his region, and his own country, and telling people, point blank, just stating it, I control the United States. I control Donald Trump. I'm an American. You can't treat, it's too humiliating. I can't handle that. And I shouldn't have to put up with that.
Yeah, well, that's the point. That's what everybody sees. Joining us now, by the way, is an Iraq War veteran, Tony Arterburn of Wise Wolf Gold and Silver. And you can get there going through davidknight.gold. We'll get Tony's take on what's happening with gold and the economy, what is coming next. Thank you for joining us, Tony. Good to have you on.
Great to be back, David. Good to see you again.
Thank you. It's good to see you. But, we have this, now we had Trump yesterday, changing his story every few hours. First he's going to leave, and I was joking about it yesterday, saying he needs to get up and say, I came, I saw, I ran.
I heard that. That's really good.
But now he's doubling down. He's going to get really tough with everybody. So what's going on? Are they going to sacrifice a bunch of soldiers to his Cargill Island attack? What do you think is going to happen?
Well, it's just like you mentioned yesterday, and the whole concept of taco, Trump always chickens out.
Mm-hmm.
That may be dangerous here because we don't know exactly who's pulling the strings here. I saw a story that even Michael Savage has distanced himself from Trump.
I saw that clip.
Has to cut ties. Says somebody's whispering in his ear, and I thought, well, that's been true from the very beginning. But this seems, I think, it looks like it's torturing him in some way. Like he's vacillating more than usual. And you go back to the beginning of this term as president, when he swore in after 2025. He had that run-in when they don't know what the F they're doing. Remember that when he's talking about Israeli-Iran relations, and now he doesn't know. So that we're really in dangerous territory. I mean, as you mentioned, the cost of the war, the rise in energy prices, and I think reputation more than anything, just like our standing, how we perceive to negotiate, whether we're an honest broker. I mean, that's long been held in question, but I don't think there's any question anymore. We can't be trusted as far as our diplomacy is concerned. And so all of that is out the window. NATO, which I don't support, by the way, because last time I checked, the Soviet Union collapsed in 1991. So I don't think we need NATO anymore, but NATO is falling apart. And so the entire world order and everything that's built post-Cold War is disintegrating. And this seems to be a push to accelerate that.
Well, he's the one who's doing this. I mean, he's the one who said he's going to attack the country of a fellow NATO country. I mean, you know, what happens if he attacks Greenland, which is technically Denmark's territory? Do we invoke the article to for everybody to go to war against the attacker with that?
Attack ourselves.
It's a circular firing squad for NATO. It's it is crazy, and he is crazy, quite frankly. Ty Cobb, his former lawyer, came out and said, folks, let's just accept the fact this guy is crazy and let's invoke the 25th Amendment. I had a listener who... sorry, go ahead.
No, I just totally agree with that. I mean, I think that's going to talk about that on my show today. I don't think there's any coming back from this. I mean, it's bad when you start hoping for a Democratic sweep of House and Senate so we can get these impeachment hearings underway and just get the investigations rolling. The entire regime needs to be upended. This is a terrible display of electoral consequence in this country, maybe the worst we've ever seen.
Oh, yes, that's absolutely. Yeah, I had a listener who sent me an article that was written by a former UK ambassador. His idea was that, look, Trump's not stupid. He knows what he's doing. He's just incredibly narcissistic and greedy. He's doing this to enrich himself and his donor owners and that type of thing. And I agree with that. You know, I mean, he's looking at it and trying to, as an ambassador, what are you going to do? You're going to try to figure out the psychology of these people as heads of state that you're dealing with, right? I just look at the policies. And as I said, you know, this back and forth, the double think that you get from the MAGA cult is that, first of all, he's a 4D chess master. Secondly, he doesn't know what's happening. He's being deceived by the people that he picked to be in his own cabinet, and he can't do anything about it. It's like, well, you have to make up your mind. It's one or the other. And I said for the longest time, I said, I don't think that he is stupid. I think he's evil. I don't think he's a genius because this guy is like a typical liar. He can't keep his story straight, and he has no respect whatsoever for other people. That's why he keeps coming up with such absurd lies like we saw during the Minnesota ICE episodes. He had the people from the New York Times in there, and he was sticking to the story that he just, like Kristi Noem, they just make up a story. Even though everybody had seen the videos of what had happened, they just make up their own story as if nobody else had seen any video and had nothing to do with what was happening there. And they said, well, let's get out the tape and let's watch it. And so he sees the tape, evidently for the first time, of what happened with the shooting. And he just changes the subject and moves on to something else, which is what he does on a day-to-day basis, right? When he's finally exposed with the lies and they collapse, he just changes the topic and he starts another fight somewhere else.
Yeah, it seems that this is probably his Waterloo as a narcissist, like a malignant narcissist, the likes of which we've never really seen before. And I mean, the history of why you get the term narcissist is narcissist, you know, he fell in love with his own image, looking into the river and dove in trying to embrace it and drown, you know, like it's always, there's always a high price to pay for that sort of thinking and that sort of character. Unfortunately, we're tied to this, like the entire country, because things had gotten so bad in our electoral politics, as you know, David, that the disruption that he caused was so attractive, just, you know, telling the mainstream media that they're fake news. And, you know, even the stuff, as a veteran, I chuckled at the fact that he came out and said about John McCain, I like people that aren't captured, you know, when he made that remark. And I thought, well, that's so over the top. It would have destroyed anyone else. But people were so fed up that it was like, I'll hitch my wagon to this guy, just destroy this, you know, this mechanism of establishment that is choking us. And he became part of it. So now it's just this hybrid monster of establishment and narcissism and self-aggrandizement and self-enrichment, and it's so disgusting. I mean, you and I have distanced ourselves from this long ago. I mean,
that's right. Yeah, I remember looking at it and thinking, well, this guy is going to be a real monkey wrench into Washington D.C. He's going to be an agent of chaos. And he was for a short period of time. And then what happened was he is really attached to these establishment figures. He was put in there by these establishment figures. So he became an agent of chaos to the global economy, which is really, what we were focused on here with gold, isn't it? This chaos that is unfolding on a regular basis. It's kind of interesting to watch him manipulate the markets. And we've seen a lot of market manipulation in terms of big bets placed just before he makes a fake statement, and he makes a statement to move the market in one direction, but somebody made a big bet on something that nobody could have foreseen what he was going to say. And then he does it again in the opposite direction. Then he does it again. He just keeps doing it and getting away with it. And it turns out now that War Pete was trying to place some investments on war stocks with some people in BlackRock. They refused to do it because they could see that this is going to be a legal quagmire mess of insider trading, so they refused to do it. So who knows? Maybe he was the one who went on to these different markets. But this is the way he's manipulating the market. But the reality is, Tony, is that eventually the markets are reacting to everything that he is doing. He is playing them like a fiddle. But at some point, and we're getting there now, we just had yesterday, a HAL 9000 in California said in LA, diesel is $7.79 a gallon. The reality of what Trump is doing with this chaos program is going to be in everybody's faces. And there's not any way that at that point in time that he can come up with some happy story or that the Federal Reserve can come up with some kind of a happy story. It's going to have a big effect. And so the fundamentals that are there, the things that have been driving gold are much stronger now. And eventually all of this nonsense of Trump putting stories out there, that's eventually going to be swamped by the reality of what he's actually doing.
Yeah, I believe just my analysis is this is some sort of misdirection. I would say on a timeline, if we were to liken it to any other time, it would be this is December of 2019. Because if you look at the headlines coming across from Europe and coming out of places like South Korea, they're already looking at energy lockdowns, like, the limitations on driving, limitations on transportation.
That's right.
So if that's the case, then this has been planned long ago. This is the second act of that, of some kind. And I think we're just seeing so much chaos and confusion goes before it. So we're trying to decipher what this means geopolitically or what the policy is here. But perhaps all along, this is just choking off the 20% of the world's oil supply on a useless, unnecessary, unconstitutional, evil war. And then that spills over into the rest of the economy, and everything from there cascades into some sort of new restriction, some sort of new control mechanism, which is going to be about energy. I mean, clearly there's not going to be any new energy coming online. We're not going to start. I mean, it'll take years, even if we started today, to try to put the amount of output to even come close to where we were. What we're like trading at $60 a barrel before this. I mean, an ounce of silver for a while, for months, was worth more than a barrel of oil. And so we're in uncharted territory at this point. I would say, as far as the economy is concerned, there is no certainty. So everything is all over the place. I mean, I saw an article from Kitco where one of Bloomberg's analysts said, well, I think gold and silver have hit their generational peak because this is just like the 70s. And I go, no, it's not. I mean, you can look at some of the factors, that just on surface level, but the debt of the U.S. was $1 trillion in 1979. Yeah. We're 39 trillion and climbing, going about $1 trillion every 90 days or so. All the metrics are completely different. And I would say, generational, that's not even close. I mean, Turkey just sold 60 tons of gold, and they just did that. They put the gold on the market and liquidated it. I'm assuming to use for all sorts of other infrastructure and necessary projects to keep their country running.
Yeah,
that's what's happening. Gold is being sold and bought. By the way, this gold, if you look at what's the infrastructure that's being built, David, one of the most interesting things, and it's happening quietly. Singapore, Hong Kong, they're not only building storage facilities, they're building clearance centers where sovereign nations, Belt and Road Initiative, all that stuff can start using these off ramps that are, centralized to liquidate and purchase gold bullion, physical gold through the exchange. That's the new reserve currency. So whether the price is, $5,500 an ounce or $4,500 an ounce, or if we go back down to 4,000, it doesn't matter. That's the new world reserve currency in this chaos, because trust is being diminished from the top down of the United States. And isn't it interesting?
And that's what Trump is for.
But he's signing he for the first time, a president's going to sign the currency.
Yeah.
He's putting his signature on it. So isn't that interesting? He's signing off on the dollar, like the decline of all that was built in the modern era, since Bretton Woods is being, controlled demolition right now.
And he wants to put his face on a commemorative 24 karat gold coin. I don't want that, by the way. Don't put that in Wolfpack.
People always
download that.
You talk about grifting. Just a side note, a lot of these places will get these 1 ounce silver Trump coins, or, they're not coins, they're rounds, just silver rounds, just generic. And they'll sell them for 2 or 3 times the price. They'll be selling for 150 an ounce, 200, whatever. Don't buy that stuff.
I've seen that in the gun stores. They've got laser engraved guns that have Trump's face all over it. It's like, no.
No, thank you.
And they, like you point out, they sell it at a premium because fool and his money are soon parted, right?
Well, it's still a demographic that is, I think, future. If there is hope, there is a future. If future historians look back, it's going to be a strange psychological study on whatever this demographic is. It's a certain age group, and then Fox News viewer, they're just so tuned into, like, it doesn't register with them that something is wrong with what's happening. They just can't see it.
Well, the other thing I love, first it kind of got me angry on people looking at these wars and say, I voted for that. And I just want to say to these people, no, you didn't. That's how stupid you are, because he was saying he was going to do exactly the opposite. So if you voted for him, you voted for exactly the opposite. That was what he was promising at the time. Stop this. I voted for it nonsense. You didn't vote for any of this stuff. He's violated all of his campaign promises as well as his oath to the Constitution.
Yeah, I hope that they have what alcoholics refer to as a moment of clarity. I hope that comes soon. It usually comes through pain, like pain at the pump and then pain at the grocery store, and the fact that you have to decide between your energy costs and your food. I don't want that for anyone, by the way. This is unnecessary that we're even here. I mean, there's so much opportunity right now, and we're just squandering it, which is, again, is the tell that this is on purpose and it's some sort of trick. When you talk about MAGA as a magician, like Abramovich, she recently said Trump is a master magician in some way, and perhaps he is, at least in some people's minds.
Well, I think Buck Henry and Mel Brooks got it right back when they created Get Smart, right? The villain guys were chaos. And, you had to get smart to stop that. I think it's about time. That's the what we should be telling the MAGA people. You got to get smart to stop this chaos. It is a deliberate program of chaos. And, when you're talking about Turkey and other places liquidating their gold for this kind of a rainy day, that's exactly what Frank Nicely was trying to get the state of Tennessee to do and other states to do that. Say, look, rainy day is coming. This petrodollar nonsense, this fiat currency is going to blow up. You need to have some way to keep the state government going. And so let's start to accumulate gold that we can then, keep for that rainy day. And yet for individuals, we may not be able to get the state to do that, but individuals still have the ability to do that.
Well, absolutely. I mean, you can still, and I think this will be for a long time to come, you can still be your own bank.
Yeah.
Thanks to Gerald Ford, 1974. I mean, it was illegal to own gold as an American from 33 to 1974. And those who took advantage of that have done really well. I mean, even if you started buying gold in the last 3 years, You've done really well, and you will do well in the next 20. It's not going away. Gold is money. It's replacing the system, and it's funny. It's going back. Everything's fine. Like water finds its level. This experiment that we started in 71 of the fiat currency, and of course we had the run with the petrodollar. That's over. Like the whole petrodollar system is collapsing. Everything that was built after 74, there's a lot of fake there. I mean, it's why we have a $39 trillion deficit, and then I don't know how many hundreds of trillions of unfunded liabilities. All these promises that were made that can't be kept. It's the reason that things don't run the way they're supposed to. It's not based off of any sort of measurement of reality. It's not sound. It's unsound. And so you get unsound things when you don't have sound money. So that's all coming apart. But the rest of the world, they've already moved on. When you look at BRICS, whatever that is to the financial networks, whatever they think BRICS is, which is Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, and then all these other periphery nations, they're already they've departed long ago, and they're building the infrastructure. That's, I think, one of the most interesting stories, if you really follow, the headlines outside of the mainstream, is that the infrastructure for the new system built on gold is already being built.
Yeah, in terms of the petrodollar, I mean, the fact is that when that was put together, we were one of the big customers because we were doing a lot of manufacturing. And so we were using more than we were producing in terms of oil and things like that. Now it's China that's in that position. They're doing most of the manufacturing, and they're having to import oil. And so the Saudis have turned towards China. Iran is kicked out of the system that we set up. So they're going to start tolling these oil tankers in terms of Chinese yuan because they have to. But that is a direct assault to the petrodollar. So what does Trump do in response to all this stuff? He goes, well, the leader of Saudi Arabia is going to have to kiss my ass. It's just amazing. He couldn't, it has to be deliberate. You can't be that stupid and that destructive and that chaotic without it actually being deliberate, I think.
Yeah, we're hitched onto a very wild ride. The decline, it reminds me, there was this phase in MacArthur's life, Douglas MacArthur, he'd been viceroy of Japan post World War II. And, the start of the Korean War, and I'm sure you know this history, he was in his 70s, it was like early 70s. And he had this moment. And William Manchester, who wrote the biography on him called American Caesar, it opens up and it talks about how his character split like a nuclear reactor, like he had a fissure, and like whatever happened, it imploded, and he destroyed himself by being so arrogant. Like everything he'd built is this mythos of himself. He made these statements like, oh, the Chinese will never enter the war, and if they do, then I'll drop 70 atomic weapons on mainland China. And people are like, well, you don't even have control of that. The president, he's trying to go above Truman's head. So this really got to him. And it just reminds me of that, like whatever that phase in life. And, Trump seems to have hit that. And unfortunately, he's president. Like we're tied to this. Can you imagine? I mean, without even being critical of like politically, to celebrate Robert Mueller's death.
Yeah.
I think publicly as the leader of the so-called free world. I mean, that's bothersome. There's no precedent for that. I can't look back through history and see anybody who really had any of that sort of power using that kind of language publicly. I mean, obviously there's the Nixon tapes and things, but you're talking about public statements.
Yeah. I said when he said that, Tony, I said, well, he's just written his own quote unquote eulogy. That's basically what people say about him. When he dies, I'm sure people are going to bring back that line and say, I'm glad he's dead. Now he can no longer hurt innocent people.
We have an eternity, to quote Gladiator, right?
We have
things we
BS,
do echo in eternity.
Yeah, we have a BS artist who's running loose in a china shop. It's nothing but pure bull that he's doing there. Well, we have a Kitco article here say gold is behaving like a risk asset in 2026, but de-dollarization trend will drive further gains. That's a quote from HSBC analysts who are looking at this. And I think that is the case. We're going to see, Biden really kicked off this move away from the petrodollar. by using the system as a weapon, Trump has poured that into overdrive. He's turned that whole process up to 11 on the amp. That goes from 1 to 10. He's got it up at 11. He is accelerating all of this chaos. And of course, we said that was what was going to happen. We're getting close to the end of the fourth turning, and they got to bring somebody in who is going to really accelerate everything very rapidly. That's why they picked Trump and put him in power.
That's got to be the reason. It's the only apparent thing that's happening. It's only that explains it, really.
Mm-hmm.
And it's short-sighted. You're going off metrics as far as price. This same thing with Bitcoin or whatever. But that you look at the number go up philosophy. Well, if it's a time of crisis and there's war on the horizon, why isn't gold 6,000 an ounce or all of that? Well, we mentioned this last week when we talked. I mean, gold is liquid. It's very easy to liquidate. That's the reason that it serves such a good function as money. And the system that's set up for that now has done a really good job. I mean, Turkey, again, moved about 60 tons of gold, about $8 billion off of their balance sheet to pay for some things, a rainy day fund to keep things moving.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it did in the face of all this with oil going to $120 a barrel. And that's what's happening. All these countries, entities using their gold reserves either to pivot and get into oil, because why wouldn't you? I mean, if you look, it's not going to get better anytime soon. The price is only going to go up for oil, and which is bad for everybody else. But that's what the price dips reflect to me, is liquidity in the face of crisis. And if you just wait long enough, it's like that. What is it? I think it comes from Sun Tzu. Like it's a meditation. If you sit by the river long enough, the body of your enemy will float by. Just be patient with this stuff. If you're people that are so focused on price, which I'm not, by the way, I get up. I wish it would just stabilize. I wish it just stay put for a little while. That would be great, because I wouldn't have to have the mental gymnastics that I do every single day to try to figure out how to run my businesses. But in the face of crisis, I think gold and silver have done remarkably well. And they're going to do well in the future. It's just, don't get caught up on the short-term price projections are so myopic, and it doesn't make any sense that you would say, well, it's generational. This is the peak. It's not the peak. We're just getting started.
You talked about Sun Tzu, and of course, there's a lot of memes that you'll see all over social media. Don Tzu, where they have Trump as a Chinese philosopher and going over these garbage quotes.
I forget too, and I think that haven't you mentioned before that you don't like Sun Tzu quotes? I forget. Wasn't it that you get tired of them or so? I forgot. I know
it's okay. I've never studied the guy actually, but everybody else apparently has, and I get a kick out of the Don Tzu quotes that are out there. But Reuters is saying gold rises over 3% this week, but it's on track for the worst month since 2008. Worst in what sense? Worse in compared to the dollar that is just based on hopium, and that is the crazy thing that is there, I think. And
let's see, again, before I go into Iraq in 2003, gold was about $300 an ounce.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'd have just bought gold this whole time, instead of saving dollars, and I had a savings account, and I was 23, so I bought my first gold going into the spring of 2003 is when I bought my first physical gold, and I bought it from the wrong company because I bought one of those 1-800 numbers on talk radio, and they really got me. That doesn't happen to my customers, but they got me because I didn't know what I was doing. But that is an interesting comparison. It's had its worst week or worst month. Well, you're right. Compared to what?
Mm-hmm.
And what is the price of gold right now compared to the strength of the dollar? I mean, what's it done over the last 20 years?
That's right. Yeah, there's a lot of just transient noise that is out there. And, we're talking about people using it for liquidity, people like Turkey. But imagine the Gulf states. They've got to have a lot of gold. And that they're looking at this and saying, well, our income is taking a massive hit, right? And not only that, but we've had our facilities have been destroyed. We're going to have to now, even though our income is down, we're going to have to rebuild this stuff. Where are we going to get that money from? Well, they're going to start selling their gold. That's what we're seeing as part of this. But I'd say on the horizon, there's something very hopeful, Tony. I just showed yesterday the library that Trump is going to be building. And of course, if it's real gold, he's going to be getting more gold than a central bank in order to build these monuments to himself. He's got a 30-foot gold statue that he wants to build of himself, and gold all over the skyscraper. So that's the hopeful future there, I get.
Oh, would it really surprise you if the MAGA cult was started building a pyramid to make it to make his mausoleum, modern day pyramid? Would it really surprise you?
I thought Shannon Joy had the best
with gold.
That's right. Shannon Joy had the best quote. She sees this the skyscraper with a big needle on the top of it. She said, "Isn't it fitting that Vax Daddy's building something that looks like a giant syringe?"
That's right.
Oh, that was great. Well, it is crazy times that we're living in right now. But when I look at this, my take on all this is like, hey, it's on sale. I look at it as a good time to buy when gold is down, because the fundamentals have not changed, and we are fundamentally screwed. So you need to prepare for this rainy day that's coming for each and every one of us, right?
It certainly does appear that way. If you look at the metrics of what the role that gold is going to play in the next 10, 20, 30 years, I don't think you need to worry about price, because the role that the dollar is going to play has a big question mark over it. And I don't think the dollar is going to zero, but I do think it's going to digital. I think this is part of the controlled demolition, creative destruction. This is part of that chaos that ushers in the problem, reaction, solution. They create the problem, we have the reaction. They already have the solution. Here it is. It's this new digitized off-ramp system, stable coin, public-private partnership thing, whatever that is. At least that's the plan. That doesn't mean that's how it's going to go. Yeah. Because, again, all my intel and everything that I see is the world's ramping up to use gold as a metric of storage of value, physical, because we live in a post-trust era. This is not 1945 anymore. This is not the liberal world order or whatever Biden talked about. That is being scuttled. This is being destroyed, and it's something else is going to take its place. And I do think the opportunity here for people that are paying attention is to realize that, one, all of these plans, that doesn't mean that they actually succeed. What was the plan of COVID 1984? Like, really, what was that? Was it a test? Did they think that they were going to get more out of it than they did? Did they do a hurry up offense on the Great Reset? It's an unknown, but they certainly are doing something again. It's this is an extension of COVID in some way. And that's another attempt. Again, the world moves in different directions. It's hard to control that. And I think the people at Davos and the Klaus Schwabian types, they definitely want to have that top-down control grid. Even the bank, we've talked about this for years, but the Bank of International Settlements, having a clearinghouse of some, all the electronic tokens and the Unicoin from the IMF, all of that is the plan. That's the blueprint. But is it reality? Because the world keeps going back to what worked before this system. And I think that's probably what's going to be the big battle ahead, is what's real, what's fake, what truly has value. That's what's coming undone, I think, in this next 1 to 5 years is. And everything.
I agree. And when you look at how Trump is ramping up the surveillance state, the police state, artificial intelligence, and how they're putting in digital ID in the name of protecting kids and everything, they'll always come up with some kind of a MacGuffin, but it's always heading in the same direction. Whether you're talking about climate change, well, we need to have some kind of a way to track everybody's energy usage and how much food they consume and how much they travel and so forth. So we got to have some way to track everything. Or you talk about a pandemic. Well, we got to have a way to track people's movements and whether or not they've been vaccinated. It's always about tracking and surveillance. And we keep seeing these things come back. All of those things are going to push people towards a system that is physical as much as possible, that is outside of this digital system, because the digital system is, people are rapidly coming to the understanding of what this thing has been set up for. It really is a net. It really is a web to trap us. And people are going to try to increasingly get outside of this in any way that they can. That physical reality is another thing that people are going to be looking for. I got a couple of questions here for you, Tony. This is from Jason Barker. He says, has Tony considered adding other metals like platinum to wolf packs as things get harder to source?
I actually have. I've talked to Yucca about that and thought about, and I'd like to know from the audience, you guys want to write me, if you are a Wolfpack member, if you'd like to see platinum, let me know. I think that's one of the metals that it doesn't get enough play. As a matter of fact, I don't pay enough attention to platinum, and because I get so focused on the gold and silver movement through the shop, and then I'll look up, and for years platinum was always right under 1,000, and then I looked up and it's double, and it's like, when did that happen? Like platinum just all of a sudden just had its moment, and I think it finally caught up, and I think what's part of it is the paper markets that were destroyed. And believe me, they were. I mean, and we still got a long way to go, but the entire paper system of contracts that happened after the tariff announcement at the beginning of 25, that I think affected everything, and it started to affect platinum, which is, again, it's a precious metal. It's rare. So platinum has a lot of usage too, outside of just being a monetary metal, the catalytic converters and other electronic components and other things like that. So, yeah, I think platinum would be a good play, especially in small quantities. And it's the same as, gold and silver is being liquid. So as far as being able to turn in and recognizable. So platinum would be a good store of value. I may do that.
It's so expensive per ounce that you can get a really tiny piece of it. You got to be careful about it, I guess. But Angry Tiger's also got a comment here. Angry Tiger's Den, he says, they're buying opportunities right now. Gold will go down a little bit because of margin calls. People need liquidity, and they'll use gold for that. I agree. And that is, even countries are going to be looking for that. I think the Gulf states are a real driver of that. I think the truth is going to come out eventually that they are big. They're trying to liquidate. What else are they going to do? I mean, they don't have much there except for their oil generation. When we take away their income stream, they got to start liquidating wealth. And I imagine these people got a lot of gold.
Which I think is, it's a buying opportunity, because if you look at the long-term metrics, everything here checks out. The world's going to use more gold, not less. There's going to be more storage of it, not less. And that will increase the price. I mean, especially when you look at what's going to happen to the dollar. There's so much, it makes me chuckle when they have these commentators who will say, well, we got these interest rates and they're going to stay put for a while. It looks like there's not going to be a lot of interest rate movements. Yes, there will be. They're going to lower rate. It's going to be what Larry Lepard calls the big print. They have to do one. I mean,
they've already started. They've already started creating money. I saw an article about that the other day. They said this is, they started ramping it up quietly. Nobody's talking about this because it's got the war that's happening.
Yeah, they're exactly right. It's the not only the war, but I think as we get closer to the midterms, and perhaps politics isn't even real anymore. Perhaps this is all just a show, and I'm open to that possibility. It's hard to even cover politics anymore. It seems so fake. But at the end of the day, we do have the midterms coming up. It's always James Carville is the economy stupid, at the end of the day. I think they may try to do something that looks like we're just doing great. And the market always responds to cheap, debt and liquidity and, fake entering the system. It always props up that the euphoria or whatever you see in the markets. They always respond. So I think we probably will see some sort of announcement on some big cash injection. Maybe not the big print just yet, but it's coming. I mean, they're going to. You look at the unfunded liabilities and everything that we have to take care of, all the deficits that we're running, and even with even if you get Palantir to audit everybody, you still can't extract enough to pay the bills. Isn't it like we pay $1 trillion just to service the interest on the debt at this point a year? And I mean, all these numbers are absolutely unsustainable as far as.
Which is another reason why they're going to force the interest rates to go lower, even in the face of inflation. They're looking at it and saying, they're going to get into this stagflation thing, just as we saw in the 1970s with the OPEC oil embargo. As I said from the very beginning, this is much, much bigger because this is 20% of the world's supply. The OPEC embargo was like 15% of the U.S. supply. And that became, because of global markets, that percolated through for everybody. And this whole idea that the Strait of Hormuz is Europe's problem and they need to solve it, it's just idiotic beyond belief. We all participate in a global market, just from the standpoint that even though they're pulling the oil or gas out of the ground here in the United States, they still have an opportunity to sell it to somebody in another part of the world at a much higher price. That's where it's going to go. And so we're going to have to compete against that in order to keep it here. That's why domestic prices are going to go up. It doesn't matter if we are net producers of oil and gas. This is part of the flaw of Trump's perspective on the trade deficit, as he ignores the budget deficit. But the budget deficit and all this interest rate stuff, that's going to come back and hit us. And we're only about a month into this thing. We've already seen prices of fuel go up very rapidly, but it's going to continue to percolate through the entire economy, everything. It's like a value-added tax. And we haven't seen the secondary and tertiary effects of this yet, but we're going to see it. And we're going to see big inflation that's going to be there. That's why it's early days and why nothing has stabilized yet. We haven't really seen the moves that are going to be coming, I think, in gold and silver.
Or anything else.
Yeah. Food, you name it. Yeah.
Food, everything. And, it's sad, David. When I ran for Congress, it's 13 years ago. And I remember sparingly using the phrase America first, because I remember, I'd read history and I understood there was dynamite in that phrase. That was almost, it was foreboding. Like you weren't really supposed to say that. It had all these connotations of anti-Semitism and racism and xenophobia and all this stuff that I wasn't animated by those things. I was animated by the principles of having a republic and, of prosperity and freedom. And it's sad when you have the Iranian president writing an open letter to Americans saying, asking, is this America first? Like using that phrase by the Iranian president, because we have such a funhouse mirror version of that now. And part of what's being destroyed is not only the liberal world order and the financial system that we built post World War II and all that peace dividend, but our national politics too, David, are being destroyed. Like we've made all of these arguments that for nationalism and things that would have worked. We're making those things unacceptable again, but we're burying them. Like Khrushchev said, about what communism was going to do to the West. We will bury you. We're being buried under whatever the hell this thing is. And I think if you look at the markets and you're judging prices or you're judging reality based off the past, you're already wrong. I'm wrong because I have to do that. Like so my mind does. Human beings do pattern recognition, but I look at this and I say, I don't know. But I do know that whatever's happening in the future is not going to be based off of what was done in the last 50 years. It's going to be a new system, new pricing models. What we are, ladies and gentlemen, we're in price discovery. That's what we are. We're in reality discovery at this point. This is something that it's not going to be over in a week. I hope it is. I hope I'm wrong. I hope that this goes away and that maybe we can go back to some sort of normalcy. But we haven't been normal for years and years. So is it any surprise that we reach some, fresh new nightmare that's being thrust upon us?
Well, Trump, I haven't played the clip yet, but I've got a clip here of Trump saying, we can't be bothered with what's happening in America. We got wars to fight. Oh. I mean, it's even his priority now. And the thing that is so concerning about this is that people don't really seem to understand that this isn't even asymmetric war that Iran is fighting. This is asymmetric economic war. This is really economic warfare that they're conducting. They just need to hang on and keep firing missiles, and they're doing that. And keep Trump hooked into the tar baby. And as long as they do that, they can do economic warfare against us. And that's really what is happening right now. And it is, that's just getting started. It truly is going to be something that is huge in terms of economics. And they don't need to deliver nuclear weapons to everybody. They can weaponize the economy by just shutting that stuff down. Or if he goes in and decides that he's going to try to bomb them back into the Stone Age, they do the same thing to the other countries that are there. And then what that's going to do is going to bomb the entire world back into the Stone Age.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
There's really no, once you've started this, there's almost no good play. And you can't, I mean, you're going to take out Iran. You're going to use, what are you going to put, 300,000 or 400,000 ground troops in to secure that country?
Mm-hmm.
What's 3 times the size of Iraq? I mean, it's madness.
Yeah.
And that's the only thing that can really describe it. Other than that, it's a plan to use it as a backdrop excuse for more social control, more top-down change, just like COVID was.
Yeah.
And, as far as like, there is no victory here. And you're right. The Iranians, they don't have to have a nuclear weapon to take down the West. They just don't surrender.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't surrender, if you don't negotiate, you don't surrender, and you stay there, and you just this thorn, this eyesore that you can't get rid of on the face of the American empire, you weaken not only our standing, but the entire economic system and the petrodollar. All that is on the docket for destruction. And so I'm with you, David. I think this is like, not good news all the way around.
It's like what Goethe said, you're either hammer or anvil. I think we're the hammer, they're the anvil, and they can take the blows, and they're going to keep doing it. And what is going to happen is it's going to be this massive economic warfare. So how do you prepare for economic warfare? Again, I think it is getting real and getting real gold and real silver physically in your hands. That's about the best thing that we can do to prepare. It's going to be a difficult time for everybody, but I really do believe that personally. And so do your own research, but that's the way I see it. I got to call it the way I see it. And so thank you so much, Tony, for coming on. Is there anything you want to tell us about Wise Wolf that right now that's changing besides the world?
Well, nothing is really changing. But, we live those principles here at Wise Wolf and Wolfpack. I mean, this is what we do. And we, are building more infrastructure to be able to serve people, whether you're buying or getting into the market. You need to liquidate. We serve both of those functions, and I think that will be our raison d'etre, if you will, for in the next 10 or 20 years. And hopefully, I'm still around for that until Palantir comes and sweeps my company away. But no, I think it's a good feeling when you say you have a transaction with someone, maybe they come and work on your AC and you hand them a 10th ounce gold eagle. There was no banks. There was no banks involved. And I did that with my locksmith. My locksmith came over here in North Texas and put some new deadbolts in for me and a magnet lock on my front door for security. And he got paid in a gold eagle. That's the kind of transactions I think will happen more and more in the future.
I agree.
Not only with that, but things like Bitcoin too, but that physical transaction outside of the system, decentralized, reminds me of what I'm sure America was like, 100 plus years ago.
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely. Yeah, that was, as they're pointing out, we haven't had a president write his signature on the thing, since 1861 when they started doing the paper stuff. It's like, yeah, go back and look at Lincoln, and we got somebody even worse than Lincoln now. It truly is amazing to see what is happening.
Lincoln was a thoughtful tyrant. I mean, he wrote the Gettysburg Address. I mean, you imagine, this. It's funny. I studied Trump for years before he ever ran for office, and I was always intrigued. The art of the deal. And there was one book that he wrote called "Think Like a Champion." Somebody got it as a gift for me in 2009. And if you open that book, and David, I remember this. It's been years, but I remember the opening chapter was not. It's not obviously. It's not Trump talking. It's the ghostwriter. But he probably had a say in it. But he was like one of the main things that he was optimistic about, even in the face of the 2009 downturn and the housing crisis, was at least oil's at $40 a barrel. He's like, that gives us a chance to work our way out of this. That I remember that book, and it came to mind the other day when he's just willy-nilly taking oil to $120 a barrel, and who knows where else, So that's the opposite play.
Mm-hmm.
We're clearly we might have had a tyrant in Lincoln, but at least he was thoughtful.
Could have been worse. It could be worse. It could be like the embargo. So now we got the Trump oil embargo to take place of OPEC. It is truly amazing what we look at, how this is shaking out. Thank you so much for joining us, Tony. Appreciate your support of this program. Again, go to davidknight.gold. That'll let Tony know that you came to him through us, and really do appreciate what you do and what you're offering there in terms of that unique service, allowing people to dollar cost average the savings that they put into physical gold and silver to get outside of this system as a hedge against this asymmetric economic warfare. Thank you so much, Tony. Appreciate it. We're going to take a quick break, folks, and we'll be right back.
Making sense common again. You're listening to The David Knight Show.
APS Radio delivers multiple channels of music right to your mobile device. Get the APS Radio app today and listen wherever you go.
Well, who says crime doesn't pay? It certainly does pay if you know Donald Trump. Here's a list, along with the dollar amounts of some of the people that he has given pardons to just this year. People convicted of fraud. Jason Galantis, a $200 million fraudster. Joseph Schwartz, $38 million. Lawrence Duran defrauded people $205 million. Carlos Watson, $60 million. Trevor Milton, $20+ million. Todd and Julie Crisley, $30+ million bank fraud. Devin Archer, $60 million bond fraud scheme. George Santos, multiple fraud cases, anywhere from $44 to $1 million. And of course, Santos, I think, is really the alter ego of Donald Trump himself, the guy who became the poster child for the word fabulous and just making up fantastic stories. And isn't that Trump himself right there? Then you got Michelle Fiore, who was involved in charity fraud, Brian Kelsey, campaign finance fraud, Scott Jenkins, bribery and fraud scheme, Paul Walczak, $10 million plus tax fraud, Adriana Camberos, counterfeit and fraud operation. And then we have this whole war profiteering issue that is happening under the Trump administration.
Sure, to add to the fury voters are feeling about $4 gas and rising prices and weakened job prospects is this reporting from NBC News, quote, a flurry of bets made prior to major announcements about the Iran war have ramped up speculation that individuals or groups with advanced knowledge of U.S. military plans are cashing in on insider information. Data suggests traders with advanced knowledge of geopolitical events may have collectively pocketed millions from recent bets on Polymarket. Last month, in the run-up to the latest round of American and Israeli attacks on Iran, some $529 million was traded on the platform, tied to the timing of the strikes, end quote.
Just minutes before it happened. It had to be inside information. Where would you look to start your investigation if you were a super sleuth like Kash Patel or Dan Bongino? I know who I would look for first. Maybe you look at War Pete. As a matter of fact, according to the Financial Times, War Pete asked his broker to make a multi-million-dollar defense investment weeks before the Iran strikes began. Allegedly, his broker approached BlackRock to invest in their defense ETF, which holds companies like Boeing and Lockheed Martin. The investment didn't go through, however, because BlackRock reportedly flagged the request internally. This guy is so crooked, you can't even get BlackRock to work with him. He's not just a murderer, he's a grifter and a fraudster. So, again, that's where I would begin my investigations. And then, of course, we have the commander and thief himself, Donald Trump. He said when he was running, he says, if I win, I may never see my golf properties. I may never see these places again because I'm going to be working for you. I'm not going to have time to go play golf, believe me. Yeah, the altruistic, self-sacrificing king of ours. Well, the reality is this. He has the tab for his golf habit has now crossed $100 million. That is Trump's 50th visit to his course in West Palm Beach and his 110th golf day in over 14 months in office, keeping him on track to spend $300 million on playing golf during his regime. Truly is amazing. Let's take a look at the news, however, that's here. And we got a lot of pro-lifers now realizing that this guy lied to them. You know, how many different ways do we see this happening? You know, you've got the Second Amendment people are looking at this. You've got the pro-lifers looking at it. You got the people who are about health and who understand about the bioweapon. They're looking at the betrayals of Trump as well. Well, pro-lifers are shredding the Trump administration's Biden-era Title X extension as an inexplicable slap in the face. This is from Daily Caller. They said Trump's administration announced an extension of the Title X grants to Planned Parenthood for an additional year in a move that has irked pro-life supporters. Again, there was a lawsuit. They made a big display of stopping the funding of Planned Parenthood last summer. Then quietly in December, the lawsuit just disappeared. And somebody noticed that and started digging and said, oh, okay, the Trump administration just backed down. They're not going to press that anymore, which is kind of interesting when you look at what the Department of Justice is doing in terms of Biden's pistol brace. They've decided to keep fighting in favor of the pistol brace, but they don't want to keep fighting in favor of the lives of children. They also decided that they were going to fight against the lower court win on fluoride. The Trump administration is continuing the fight in court to continue to put fluoride in the water after there was a major victory from people like Derek Brose and Free Thought Project people in alliance with other organizations. The White House has halted the Biden-era Title X grants in 2025, resulting in a spate of lawsuits from Planned Parenthood and other affiliated groups like the ACLU. Then they just quietly dropped all that while they continue to pick up the ball and fight against freedom when it comes to the Second Amendment, when it comes to dumping fluoride in the water and many other issues that are out there. So they said this is an inexplicable slap in the face of the pro-life GOP base. 3 out of 4 GOP base voters support defunding Planned Parenthood. 1/3 of those voters say they will be less enthusiastic about voting this November if the GOP abandons pro-life. This is a clear abandonment of the first Trump administration enacting the Protect Life rule to stop Title X funding of Planned Parenthood. Well, again, what did you expect, really? You know, Trump is personally pro-abortion. Melania boasts about it. She is rabidly pro-abortion. So is RFK Jr. What made you think you're going to get something different? A campaign promise? Trump and HHS, RFK Jr.'s, renew the Planned Parenthood grants for a final year, they said. That's only one more year. Don't worry about it. Last year, the federal government froze $120 million in Title X family planning grants. It's not family planning. It's planning not to have a family. That's the way these people are. And, of course, at the center of this, just like at the center of the fight against the Second Amendment, is Jeanine Pirro, right? The fox in the chicken coop, the Fox commentator in the chicken coop. Both she and Pam Bondi have boasted about getting guns off of the streets because that makes everybody safer if you take away their guns, right? Well, she is involved in this as well. So we're going to fund Planned Parenthood and we're going to attack the Second Amendment. And as all of this is happening, we have this weekend, it's kind of interesting to watch the grifters and the con people around Donald Trump as we approach Resurrection Weekend, the weekend that we commemorate the death and resurrection of the Lord Jesus Christ. You have these people circling around Trump. As a matter of fact, Trump himself kind of led off with all of this stuff, talking about, he's got a prepared script here that he's reading about what Christians understand about this event that we are celebrating here. Here's the way he puts it.
On Palm Sunday, Jesus entered Jerusalem as crowds welcomed him with praise, honoring him as king. They call me king now. Do you believe it? No,
it's about me.
I'm such a king, I can't get a ballroom approved. It's pretty amazing, right? I'm a king. If I was a king, we'd be doing a lot more. I'm doing a lot, but I could be doing a lot more if I was a king.
Yeah, well, Christ didn't come to have a ball. It's a big difference, actually, between them. And a lot of the people who are Zionists need to understand that Christ was king. He was born king, and he was acknowledged as king. It didn't matter for how long. Meanwhile, you got Paula White, and Robert Jeffries is standing right there. Listen to what she has to say, comparing Trump to the Lord Jesus Christ.
And Mr. President, no one has paid the price like you have paid the price.
Yeah, certainly not Jesus,
It
right?
almost cost you your life. You were betrayed and arrested.
You didn't know that Isaiah 53 was about Trump, did you?
It's a familiar pattern that our Lord and Savior showed us. But it didn't end there for him, and it didn't end there for you. God always had a plan. On the third day, he rose, he defeated evil, he conquered death, hell, and the grave. And because he rose, we all know that we can rise. And sir, because of his resurrection, you rose up. Because he was victorious, you were victorious. And I believe that the Lord said to tell you this. Because of his victory, you will be victorious in all you put your hand to.
False prophet, yeah.
Amen. Because God is with you and God is using you to defeat evil, to restore families.
She's using God.
The church, to harvest the nations, and to bring a worldwide revival. So I'm going to ask,
worldwide revival of what?
And just, if you're comfortable, stretch your hand towards our president. And even if, Reverend Graham, you'd like to...
Well, I think I would have to stretch my middle finger towards the president as if I was there. But isn't that amazing? That disgusts me. That grifting woman disgusts me beyond my ability to say, look, Christ was not a victim. He said, I lay my life down and I can take it up again. I lay my life down for my friends. Right? That was what that was about. He was not a self-serving narcissist like Trump. You couldn't have anything more antithetical to the Lord Jesus Christ than this grifting criminal, this illegal alien president. And I call him illegal alien, as I said earlier in the program, because everything that he does is illegal and alien to the Constitution and our form of government and any system of morality. And yet it continues. We keep getting people who are holding him up and comparing him to the Lord Jesus Christ. To me, that is as offensive. I remember my parents getting very offended by the Beatles. Remember, he had people all across the Bible Belt burning their Beatles records when John Lennon said, "Hey, we're bigger than Jesus," you know. And later on, he does this Ballad of John and Yoko, where he says, "Hey, they're going to crucify me." We've got John Tallarico taking exception to the fact that he had some pastors say, "Hey, he needs to be crucified with Christ." In other words, he needs to die to himself and turn to the Lord Jesus Christ. You think that Donald Trump needs to be crucified with Christ? Well, you better believe he does. We all do need to. But certainly he is somebody who has taken on the system of this world. And as everybody says, well, look at the fact that he's in place. The fact that he's in place says that God allowed it. The question is, did God allow it as a blessing or as a curse? Satan told Christ, he said, it's in my power, to give you all these kingdoms of the world. Giving somebody like Donald Trump control over America is something that kind of smells of Satan to me, quite frankly. But here's a guy talking about Trump being a prophet.
And with Trump there, which is one of those rare moments in Earth history where you have someone who's not a politician, you almost got a prophet in office.
He's not a politician.
They said to him yesterday, he's hilarious. They said to him, when will this war of Iran be done? He goes, I'll know. Well, when will you know? Or what evidence are you looking for? I'll feel it in my bones. Folks,
oh, that's great.
Normal. This is why his...
Yeah, it is not normal.
Freaking out. Trump's going to feel it in his bones. Yeah, that's exactly right. That's how he negotiates all these deals. It's a gut instinct. It's called his spirit man. This guy's an actual Old Testament prophet king. That's what he really is, whether you like him or not.
Yeah, and he's got the Witch of Endor right there next to him, Paula White, who is going to stand up there. Okay, well, I just remember Saul was anointed king, and then certain things happened with him. We've got a guy who is in office who is really a judgment on this country. As a matter of fact, I played a little bit of this earlier by mistake. I hit the button. This is Donald Trump giving his take on Passover.
Wonderful Jewish American community, and to Jews celebrating in Israel and around the world this week, I want to wish you a very happy Passover. Over 3,000 years ago, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob delivered the ancient Israelites out of slavery and brought them into the promised land. It was an amazing period of time, just like today we have an amazing period of time. The journey started with faith in God's word, and it ended with a miraculous march through the Red Sea and an astounding exodus out of Egypt. The world has never been the same. This week, we recall this ancient proof of God's faithfulness and are reminded that with true faith, eternal hope, and the power of prayer, nothing can stop the people of God. As Jewish families and loved ones gather together for Seder dinner, we ask that God will continue to watch over the Jewish people and that he may continue to preserve and protect the United States of America for generations to come. Our country.
And again, when we look at the Seder event, I said the other day I had the opportunity, was a very interesting opportunity to go to a Seder dinner that was being done by some Messianic Jews who believe that Christ is the Messiah. They pointed out that there was no lamb in the modern Passovers because the system of sacrifice that pointed towards Christ from Passover on had been destroyed with the temple. And of course, when you look at the crossing of the Red Sea that Trump mentioned there, Ben Shapiro, when asked about that with Joe Rogan, said, do you believe that the Red Sea was parted for the Israelis to walk across? Oh, no, I don't believe that. Don't believe that at all. I just believe that we got this deed to all of the Middle East, and we're going to make good on that by theft and by murder. That's where they are right now. It's the people of true faith. He did get that part. Whoever wrote that speech for him got that part right. God's people are those who have faith in him, not those who are looking for land by any means. The Genghis Khan wannabes. Well, as Epstein's clients are walking free, an innocent man rots in a cage simply for promoting liberty. Yeah, it began with all these fraudsters that Trump has let out, people who stole from other people, hundreds of millions of dollars over and over again. I should have gone through and totaled up what the total amount of fraud for these people that he has pardoned, a couple of dozen of them, but I didn't do that. As they point out, this is Ian Freeman, who Gard Goldsmith knows, and very well there in New Hampshire, has substituted on his radio show for him and talked a great deal about that. As the Free Thought Project points out, while the political establishment buries the names of elite predators and engineers foreign bloodshed to distract the masses, a peaceful man is losing nearly a decade of his life in a federal cage for the so-called crime of helping people bypass the fiat banking cartel. Not a single one of Jeffrey Epstein's high-profile American clients has seen the inside of a jail. Meanwhile, Ian Freeman, a man whose only so-called crime was facilitating voluntary cryptocurrency exchanges, is rotting in a federal cage. The juxtaposition is sickening, but it perfectly illustrates the priorities of a ruling class that views individual liberty as a far greater threat than systemic predation and mass slaughter of children. And folks, Donald Trump is your poster child for the elites. He never was the man that Alex Jones told you. That was a myth. He was always a part of this disgusting Epstein system. When a peaceful man in New Hampshire helps people to bypass the fiat banking cartel using Bitcoin, the full force of the empire is brought down upon his head, and he's not going to get a pardon from Trump. You know, he doesn't have millions to give Trump. He didn't defraud anybody. So he can't buy his way out of it with that crook in the White House. And of course, they got to make an example out of him. Friedman's conviction is a masterclass in prosecutorial overreach and judicial acrobatics. He was effectively railroaded for supposedly conspiring to launder money with an undercover federal agent. And yet, under well-established federal law, it is legally impossible to form a criminal conspiracy with a government agent. Yet the First Circuit Court of Appeals enthusiastically upheld his 8-year sentence anyway, when they officially denied his appeal. And he will not be getting any pardon from Trump. There's no $1 million to give to Rudy Giuliani or any of his other front men. The government is literally criminalizing the act of not acting as a financial spy for the state, punishing Freeman for running a business that respected customer privacy by disabling surveillance features on his Bitcoin kiosks. And we're going to see the same thing being done to people over operating systems, over apps, because they're demanding right now in one state after the other. We have some federal laws that are lining up for this as well. You're going to have to collect all this information on people, or we're going to hit you with massive fines and criminalize this with jail sentences. All privacy must be ended, thanks to people like Donald Trump. And yet, look at who they give privacy to. The worst of the worst among us, the pedophile predators of children. The system is designed to break the individual, to systematically erase them from public consciousness. The cruelest thing a cage does is to teach the world how to keep moving without you. That was their comment with that. Well, Catherine Austin Fitts had something to say about another aspect of hypocrisy when we look at the Epstein predators going free while other people are punished.
There's a meme going around the social media that says it perfectly. It says we've raided more raw milk farms than Epstein clients. Okay.
Yeah.
And that says it all. So, you know, there's no healthier food for you than raw milk. Unbelievable. And yet they're trying to shut down your healthy food, but the Epstein clients are free to rock and roll.
Well, we're going to take a quick break. Travis, you want to read some of the comments that we've got there?
Absolutely. We have Team Jesus Eternity says, the oligarchs know that we see them and despise them for what they really have done. Bonkers, for them will not save them from eternity. That's right.
True, yeah.
Star Barkley says, Trump is capable of anything. I worked with a toxic narcissist for 20 years. I know the type, and Trump is the worst.
Yeah, I could say that as well. So absolutely right. Yeah.
Epstein Island says, the stupidest Trump image I have seen was a red pickup truck with a side portrait of Trump with the husband and wife wearing camouflage jackets. And he says he saw that yesterday. Yeah, that's hard to believe people are still this heavily bought in.
Oh, of course, you also had the ICE agents who are walking around in the winter in an urban environment wearing like jungle camouflage. That's that's the opposite of camouflage in that environment, isn't it?
Yes, we have Jerry Alatalo says the golden stone age of America. That's what he's pushing us towards.
Yeah, that's right. It is going to be a stone age, not a golden age.
Oh, we have a comment here from Guard Goldsmith that just came in. Mm-hmm. He says, last year, Ian called me from his prison cell as he awaited word. It was on a tablet that the prison allowed people to rent for money for 10 minutes, etc.
Wow, it's so sad. Yeah. It's so sad to see that. And of course, you know, I watched this for years. I remember at the end of Trump's first term, all the crooks and devils that he was pardoning left and right, and seeing other people like Marty Gottesfeld and at the time Ross Ulbricht that he was passing over while he gave these crooks like Jared Kushner's dad pardons. And of course now he's made Jared Kushner's dad ambassador to France. I mean, just pouring salt in the wound of injustice. We'll be right back.
You're listening to The David Knight Show.
Elvis.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Beatles.
And the sweet sounds of Motown. Find them on the Oldies channel at apsradio.com.
Well, I saw somewhere that Ben Shapiro is losing like 20,000 followers a week. And I thought, why isn't it more than that? What's the matter with the rest of these people? He is not aging too well, but he is still young enough to go fight the wars that he loves. They extended it to 42, and that includes him, includes Laura Loomer, includes Eric Trump, of course, Barron Trump.
Can you imagine the horror of seeing Laura Loomer stalking towards you on the battlefield? That sounds like a war crime on its face. Like, I don't know if we're allowed to draft Laura Loomer.
Well, they could use her like a bagpipe to strike fear in the heart of the enemy.
Just a scarecrow.
On the front lines or something, yeah. Yeah, it's pretty scary. But here's Ben Shapiro talking about how scurrilous the criticisms that people had of this war were. He says, Tucker and I want the same thing. No war with Iran, no American involvement in this region of the world that amounts to American boots on the ground. We all want the same thing here, but the idea is that if you think America should flex its muscles to push Hezbollah off the ball, for example, then this means that you actually want the war with Iran, which of course is really scurrilous. And it's not true. Now, he said this back in 2023, but he really is cheering the war now. And that is the truth of what is happening. He thinks that Trump is courageous because Trump is doing the unpopular thing. Sometimes it's unpopular because it's the wrong thing to do.
Caroline Leavitt was talking to young voters yesterday, and she said Trump is doing this for you, which is totally true. By the way, this is an act of political courage.
Right.
I know sometimes it happens. It's so funny. We were having this conversation on Friendly Fire the other day with Michael Knowles and Andrew Klavan and Chris Rufo. We were talking about the political fallout, theoretically, from what's going on in Iran. It could hurt Trump politically. And I said, like, guys, maybe Trump is doing a thing because he thinks it's the right thing to do. And that is a good thing. You elect leaders to do the right thing.
It's amazing this guy gets away with lying like this. He's just like Trump, isn't he? Absolutely amazing. Well, Charlie Kirk had it figured out, especially about Iran. Yeah, and here is Erica Kirk acting like it's a mystery that we will never solve.
I would love for him to be here right now and tell us if we should or should not.
Here's where I stand. And
wish we knew where Charlie Kirk would be on the Iran war.
Ground. We do not want American kinetic involvement. This is Israel's war.
Make sure we don't go to war against Iran, which would be a profound mistake for our country. So that's a really, really important thing.
It's pathologically insane. I'm sorry. It is. Do you understand how large Iran is? It's massive. It's a very big country. It's mountainous. It makes Afghanistan and Iraq look like a cakewalk.
This is more Israel pushing for Iran.
But is that America's problem? That's I mean, maybe the answer is yes. Maybe the answer is, you know what? They were wrong about Iraq. They were wrong about Syria. They were wrong about Afghanistan. They were wrong about the Taliban. They were wrong about Libya. They were wrong about the Arab Spring. They were wrong about Yemen. They were wrong about the Arabian Peninsula. They were wrong about the 9/11 hijackers being Saudi Arabian. But hey, 10 times the charge.
So Erica Kirk is either lying here or she just didn't know her husband that well. A little brother that died, he hated.
Yeah. So that's we're supposed to believe that we don't know what Charlie Kirk said. Well, there's a lot of different ways they can censor people. It would have been interesting to see the Israeli political movement here that's taken over our government. It'd be interesting to see what they would have done with Charlie Kirk if he hadn't been mysteriously assassinated. You got Randy Fine in Florida, who is boasting yet again of censorship. Why is it that we keep seeing these people like Mark Levin and Randy Fine boasting about how they're going to shut down anybody that criticizes their country of Israel? Here's Randy Fine.
We didn't have encampments on our universities. That's because of a bill we signed in Israel. Mort was there in 2019, the first state in the country to adopt the IRA definition and say we would treat anti-Semitism on our campuses the same way we treated racism. We were the first state to have a zero tolerance policy for BDS. We were the state that stopped Airbnb from boycotting businesses that people wanted to rent their places in Israel. Many of you may have seen those flyers that showed up in your driveways a few years ago. Remember those anti-Semitic flyers that would show up all the time? You haven't seen one of those lately. Because I said, you have a right to hand out flyers on the street corner. You don't have the right to throw those in people's yards. If you do that, you're going to go to jail for 5 years. And that stops.
5 years.
We don't have those anymore.
This guy is reprehensible. He ought to be run out of town on a rail. Send him to Israel, by the way. They love censorship there. Let him live there. I am so disgusted with this idea that you can't criticize or boycott a foreign government. It's just absolutely insane. I played a clip for you last week of Glenn Greenwald talking about that. He said, why is that? That is the only government on earth that it has now been criminalized by people like Randy Fine, and they boast about it. Mark Levin boasts about the fact, we cancel Pat Buchanan. Pat Buchanan was not anti-Semitic. Pat Buchanan said, we don't want to do welfare. We don't want to do foreign aid for these countries, all of them. Well, Israel wants its foreign aid. So if you don't want foreign aid for the state of Israel, then you're obviously racist. They admit that it is a racist state, but it is a racist state that is not liked by many Jewish people themselves. Which brings us again back to Alan Dershowitz. He just keeps jumping into this. And this is the guy who not only defended as a defense attorney Jeffrey Epstein, but he has talked about how we need to change the laws to allow underage girls to be fair game for people like him.
The one point I do want to make is that I understand all the feminist groups and the radicals who think this is the worst thing in the world, that anybody ever had any contact with Jeffrey Epstein. Where are all those radical feminists when it comes to the Hamas rapes of young Jewish girls, sexual abuse, beheadings? They are quiet. They are silent. The incredible hypocrisy of the Me Too movement. Me Too, except if you're a Jew. And I want to have a list of all the radical feminists who are pushing hard, and I understand that, to get all these names revealed. And I want to know how many of them have ever actually condemned Hamas for the rapes that we now know occurred and the murders that occurred. How many have been silent, and how many, like the National Lawyers Guild, have actually approved of what Hamas did? So let's put this in context.
You approve of what this guy did. You defended this guy. How dare you try to turn this into hypocrisy? That's what these people do. always, well, what about this? We had some people that were murdered over there. So I guess I'm free to murder anybody I want to now because you don't like the actions of Israel in terms of sustained attacks on civilian population for, 2 years or something now? You don't like that. So therefore you support Hamas's murder. What an absurd argument. No wonder this guy is a master lawyer. You hear the same thing from Stephen K. Smith talking about this war.
Got a lot of damn nerves to be in the face of American people saying for numerous administrations, Iran is a problem. They have to be dealt with. Iran's a problem. They have to be dealt with. And then this man deals with them, and then all of a sudden you're complaining about him now. Right. It doesn't really make sense. There's a lack of consistency.
Would you take AIPAC money?
Yeah, well, they were wrong to start with. And, we also had Benjamin Netanyahu say, they're a problem they got to be dealt with because they got a nuclear bomb that's going to be unleashed in a couple of weeks, right? We've seen the lies. And this guy, the sportscaster, I'm just amazed at how he keeps getting these headlines. That's one of the first clips I've ever looked at, this guy. He's got absolutely nothing to say. But I'm sick and tired of this whataboutism. Trump is weaponizing the government for lawfare. But what about the fact that it was done to him with the Biden administration? Two wrongs don't make a right. Is that difficult to understand? And so Dershowitz goes further, makes it clear that he is concerned for Israel and Israel only.
So we have a problem in the Jewish community. Israelis tended to be united in favor of this war, not completely, but American Jews, no. They're more worried about a couple of $100 a year in extra gas prices than they are about securing the future of Israel against a nuclear Iran. Jews can be as selfish and as stupid as any other ethnic group in the country.
Well, I think this whole war is ethnically based and stupid and unjust. And clearly, this guy is 100% on with it. Well, let's take a look at what happened because we're getting close to being out of time, as a matter of fact. I want to take a look at some of not the lies that Donald Trump told us yesterday, but let's take a look at the truth about the war. As a matter of fact, as I was playing before, you saw a massive attack unleashed on Israel. How could that be? Where are they getting these missiles from? I mean, hasn't Trump told us that they have obliterated the Iranian military? Hey, they don't have a navy, so they never had a navy. It was interesting to see the analysis that Scott Ritter had. He pointed out, he said, Iran just put a ballistic missile into the brain of Israel's northern war machine. This is the one that is running the invasion of Lebanon. He said the actual command headquarters, the facility that runs every troop rotation, every artillery order, every defensive position that Israel has maintained against Hezbollah across the entire northern front. And they did it as part of the 80th wave of attacks. When you hear Donald Trump and War Pete boasting about how successful they are in this war and boasting about how they're winning it and then demanding that they get help. I mean, if that cognitive dissonance isn't enough to clue you in, pay attention to the fact that they are on the 80th wave of attacks against Israel, attacks against U.S. bases. And he goes into a great deal of detail about how these missile systems operate, why they are mobile, why they are difficult to detect, why they're even more difficult to shoot down. He said, a coordinated multi-vector strike executed with deliberate precision against military and strategic infrastructure. And it all happened while American officials with Israeli spokesmen were standing at podiums telling the world that Iran's offensive capability had been effectively degraded. Folks were being lied to. And it's never been a more obvious lie, as one Wall Street Journal editor pointed out. Trump has become Baghdad Bob. You know, he was famously talking about there's no American tanks here in Baghdad, none at all. And the tank crew was standing across the street, basically, talking to CNN or somebody. Said, should we go over there and introduce ourselves to him? And that's how bad it's become with Trump. March the 17th, Israel launched a fresh ground invasion into southern Lebanon. That entire campaign is being commanded and coordinated out of the facility that just took Iranian ballistic missile fire. Defense Minister Israel Gaetz stated explicitly that Israel intends to hold a security zone extending all the way to the Litani River. He says this is not a defensive buffer. This is an annexation objective that is dressed in security language. And we need to understand what Israel wants out of this. It's still not clear to me what, if anything, advantage there is for Trump or the American people. I'm sure that he's getting paid in the back door for all this kind of stuff. But from the standpoint of Israel, what they want to see is the Middle East on fire and decimated. And he's going to give that to them. Probably do it this weekend. Have a good day. Thank you for joining. The common man. They created Common Core to dumb down our children. They created Common Pass to track and control us. Their Commons Project to make sure the commoners own nothing. And the communist future. They see the common man as simple, unsophisticated, ordinary. But each of us has worth and dignity, created in the image of God. That is what we have in common. That is what they want to take away. Their most powerful weapons are isolation, deception, intimidation. They desire to know everything about us while they hide everything from us. It's time to turn that around and expose what they want to hide. Please share the information and links you'll find at thedavidknightshow.com. Thank you for listening. Thank you for sharing. If you can't support us financially, please keep us in your prayers. thedavidknightshow.com.